Well, good day to you. It is May the 5th. Yes, typically is a day to get out and party, but we're going to talk about Maitreya in this video. So I hope you guys are all doing well. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. And as always, I like to do, just kind of point out if you're new, especially if you've heard these videos before and you haven't done it already, it might be a good time to start doing it, is to investigate some of this information for yourself. Don't draw conclusions based on what I said. Look at it for yourself, kind of like how a detective would look at a crime scene. Go to the websites that I provided links for in the description portion of every one of these videos. There you'll get information that you can't get anywhere else. So hopefully you'll look into it at some point. Definitely check out the Share International site if that's something that interests you. Now, if you want to come back and join the discussion, you're always welcome to do that. Post a comment, let me know what you think. Post your question in the comment section or email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. All right, now I had some comments that came my way. I also had some questions that came my way. So let's take a look and see. All right, so let's take a look at this question. Have you any clue how many interviews Maitreya has given in different countries around the world, or do you not have an up-to-date number from your sources? Well, my sources are coming from Benjamin Creme's books. So all that information stopped when he passed away. So no, I don't have an up-to-date list. I would venture to guess that it's gone on since Benjamin Creme passed away, because it wasn't dependent upon whether Benjamin Creme was alive and giving out this information or not. It's kind of moved past that. But we're still kind of in the phase of Maitreya speaking to humanity in incognito, but to kind of to paraphrase what Benjamin Creme's master said right after his first interview in January of 2010, was that millions of people had already seen him. Amongst that group, there were a large group of people that were unaware of who he was as a person, or as with his stature of being the Christ, or the one awaited by all the world's religions, but were listening intently and with an open mind to what he was saying, perhaps internalizing what he was saying. And then there was a smaller group of people that were convinced at that point that it was the teacher come back. And then there were, of course, people in that group that heard him that want nothing to do with what he said. So there's a whole spectrum of people, that and how they reacted to what he said. Now, even those people who didn't like what he had to say initially might change heart later on, but that was their initial response to what he was saying. They saw it as the end of their privilege and their rights and their power to some degree, but that's to be expected. And then as time went on, after that, he was giving about one interview a week. Started in the United States and then moved around the world, went into Mexico, Brazil, I think, parts of Australia, Japan, Russia, and so forth. Now, whether he's still doing interviews on TV, I don't know, but the door has been opened for him to enter all our lives now. And it started with that first interview. Up until that point, he would have to wait for another cosmic opportunity to be able to step forth to humanity. That cosmic opportunity has already come and gone. That window's already come and gone. And the window to come forward, he's already entered our lives. So it's just a matter of how is humanity responding, And with me talking about this after Ben has passed away, not having the same connections that Ben had with his master, it makes it difficult to relay some of this information to people, but it's also perhaps better because you can take what I said or leave it, you know what I mean? And not just take it because I claim it's coming from a higher source, because I'm not claiming that. So let's be very clear about that, So you can take this information and look at it or not. And that's kind of how Maitreya is talking to humanity. Rather than claiming to be anything special, looking ordinary, using an ordinary name, it's for each and every one of us to recognize the truth of what he's saying, and be free to be able to do that, to do it with honesty, so where you're not just following it because you think that's Maitreya. Does that make sense? So, but I'd be willing to bet you that the interviews have gone on. Perhaps he's even speaking to people with, in little groups and so forth, maybe not in the TV or the media or on YouTube or something like that, maybe more directly too. That's probably going on as well. But the other thing too that I've thought about since I've been putting these videos up, and Ben never said anything about this, because I started putting these videos up after Ben had passed away, is I'm convinced, and I could be wrong, but I'm convinced that for the majority of us, when we do finally realize that that is Maitreya, it might be before the day of declaration, it might be when the day of declaration happens, he will have been a familiar face. We would have at least said, I know I've seen him before, but I can't put it where. Maybe that might be the response from some people. Other people might, I'd heard him speak several times. I had no idea that was him. That kind of thing. I think when we look back on this time, that's going to be the reaction for most people. Others might be totally unaware of who he is because they don't really follow the news, I guess. I don't know. I don't have cable TV in that way anymore, so I'm not watching TV like that, and I'm not scouring the internet trying to find him. There was a time, especially right after Ben's first interview, that people did exactly what Benjamin Creme recommended they don't do, which was search the internet looking for Maitreya. And they came across a guy named Raj Patal who kind of fit the bill. People to this day still think that was Maitreya, but it wasn't Maitreya, because Ben had always said that Maitreya would never claim or to be Maitreya or deny being Maitreya. He would find a way to kind of skirt around the question, or not allow that thought to be planted in the mind of the questioner. And Raj Patal has denied being Maitreya, rightfully so, because he's not Maitreya. He just looks like the guy. But there are a lot of people that look like Maitreya, especially if they're of Middle Eastern or Indian descent. But we really don't know exactly how Maitreya looks. We're just going off of the picture from Nairobi, Kenya. But the times that I saw him, he looked totally different than he did in Nairobi, Kenya. There was one time I saw him in a parking lot. He looked exactly how Benjamin Creme had described him in one of his earlier books. He was very tall. He was about 6'2". I'm 6 feet, so he was a couple, 3 inches taller than me. Very handsome fella, but he didn't have a beard. He had a mustache. He had a thin little mustache, but very broad-shouldered, but very thin. And his hair was curly, but kind of wet, had like a wet look to it. But his facial features look like the Maitreya Buddha statues that, if you go on the internet and you Google Maitreya Buddha, the statues that appear, that's how he looked. He had a very small chin, and this is how Benjamin Creme described him. He had a small chin, high cheekbones, and a large forehead. But his eyes were very loving. He looked, I was kind of young, so I was in my 20s when I saw him this time. But he looked like he could be anywhere from 30 to 50 in terms of age. He looked young, but he didn't look inexperienced. He looked wise, but he didn't look haggard. You know what I'm saying? He looked experienced, like he'd been living life, but he didn't look old. He kind of had this timeless look to his face. And if I remember correctly, that's exactly how Ben described him. So, as he's speaking to people, is he using a familiar? He could very well be. He might not be looking the way that he is going to look every single time. I don't know. You know what I mean? That could also be the case. But it's best not to look for him. It's best not to really wait around for him. It's best to start doing whatever you can to help humanity along its way. Whatever it is for you to do. There was another, before I was going to say, what I was about to say was, I'm about to read an article from Benjamin Creme's master, and I haven't done it like this in a while, where I read it after one of my talks that I give. Typically I do these by themselves, and I was recording this one, and I don't know, I was just inspired to read it now, and not wait until about a week for it to be downloaded to YouTube, because I put them up about once a day. But anyway, there was a guy who commented, and he was saying, at Search for Signs, Maitreya, first he said, can you say Maitreya Manasret today? Something like that. And I didn't understand what his question was. And he said, I mean, Maitreya should reveal himself now, is what he said. So I wanted to read this article from Benjamin Creme's master, because I think people, kind of naturally think that he can just say whoever he is at any time, and that's okay. But also, they don't understand how this is going to change the world by seeing him. And as we look at our own lives, and I do this for myself, and I talk about this information all the time on this channel. I've thought about it every day of my life since I was in my early to mid 20s. About what would happen when we see Maitreya and know that's a Maitreya. I know it's going to happen sooner or later. I just don't know when. But I kind of look at my life like everybody does. I got this year, I got next year, I'm planning on the year after that, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But then he talks about the repercussions of life on planet Earth for everyone once we see and recognize Maitreya. And so there are already repercussions going on now from Maitreya being on TV, opening the hearts of mankind, and we can see it, but it's coming it kind of looks tumultuous at this moment in time. You see the divisions, they're getting wider, they're getting deeper. Both sides are entrenched in their own ideology, whether it's political, economic, nation to nation, racial groups and so forth, genders even. I mean, it's, everybody's getting divided. I even always joke around, even the meat eaters and the vegans are getting divided in terms of their view, but it's true, right? I mean, it's everywhere. You see it, all these divisions everywhere. This is exactly what Jesus said would happen in the Bible when he came back. I come not to bring peace, but to bring a sword. To set father against son, mother against daughter, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor. This is what he was talking about. It's the love nature of God that spreads the divisions, and it creates the division. It brings to the surface exactly who and what we are. That's why the divisions happen, because we are divided in our ideology. It just makes us more divided. Now, this is a temporary thing. Eventually, it will bring really cooperation on a level that we can't imagine at this time. But the interim time, it's quite difficult to kind of live through these times. Now, the other thing I want to say about that biblical statement is people misinterpret the Bible. They think that what they're reading is correct. They don't take the time to really try to intuit the true meaning of it. Or they do, it's even worse than that. They just take what somebody says at face value. They don't even take the time to even research it or even look to see what they're saying is true. They draw conclusions based on what their pastor said or somebody said that's reading a verse to them. And so when they look at this verse and then they hear about Maitreya, they think Maitreya is the Antichrist because he's talking about peace, about how humanity will bring about peace through the principle of sharing. It's within us to be able to do it. But then they say, well, Jesus said that he would never bring peace. Well, that's not what he was talking about. He was talking about the love nature of God that divides humanity. It did it during his time even. It did it during the Buddhist time. And any time that these great teachers have come on the world stage, the same thing happens because it's an automatic response from humanity to the love nature of God initially. But like I said, eventually it will ameliorate itself quite quickly, actually, and humanity will come together in a way that it can't possibly imagine today. All evidence to the contrary. Now, what I wanted to end this video with is reading an article from Benjamin Creme's master, To Serve Anew. I am going to record this one in a few days by itself, but this is, I think, important for everyone who's impatient to hear Maitreya, to recognize Maitreya, who thinks that he can just come out into the world and say who he is and ta-da, I'm here and all that kind of stuff. This is, I think, speaks volumes and speaks the best on what to expect for each of us and for the world when we know that person is Maitreya after the day of declaration. Since the time is short indeed till mankind sees the Christ, it would be wise to consider somewhat the likely repercussions of that momentous event. Firstly, men will awaken to a new situation, one altogether unfamiliar and strange. Nothing similar will have been the experience of anyone alive, No one anywhere will have heard before the thoughts broadcast on that day of days. Never before will men have heard the call to their divinity, the challenge to their presence here on earth. Each singly and solemnly alone will know for that time the purpose and meaning of their lives, will experience anew the grace of childhood, the purity of aspiration, cleansed of self. For these precious minutes, men will know afresh the joy of full participation in the realities of life, will feel connected one to another like the memory of a distant past. Suddenly, men will realize that their life till now was a shallow thing, lacking, for the majority, all that makes life dear: brotherhood and justice, creativeness and love. Many will know for the first time that they count, that they matter in the scheme of things. An unfamiliar sense of self-esteem will replace the present hopelessness. Drugs of all kinds will cease their hold on men. Quietly, men's tears will flow in humble gratitude and longing for the good. From that time forwards, a new spirit of sanctity will prevail upon the earth. Men will walk on tiptoe for a time. Soon, however, men will realize that the changes needed in the world are vast, manifold, requiring patience and dedication, imagination and trust. Before long, men everywhere will engage themselves in the work of reconstruction, the rehabilitation of the world. Succor for the poor and hungry will take pride of place, and so will end forever a blasphemy in men's midst. Millions will know for the first time the quiet happiness of satisfied need. No more will the dying forms of the starving disgrace the screens of the affluent. No longer will men watch their brothers dying before their eyes. So will end a dark chapter in the history of the race. Changes, unequaled in extent, will engage men's minds and hearts. Not but the finest of the past will prevail against the onslaught of the new. Daily, the transformations will be recorded for men to compare and admire. A new world will be constructed in the blazing light of day. All will, in their own way, participate. Each will add his vision and contribute to the whole. For many, the very presence of the Christ will constitute a problem. Their long-held beliefs will be shaken to the core. For them, a period of heart-searching will be inevitable as they seek to understand the meaning of the new dispensation. Ancient beliefs die hard and hurt bitterly in the process. Nevertheless, millions will respond with a glad heart, happy to accept the teacher in their midst. Few in time will stand against the common acknowledgement that the Christ, in the person of Maitreya, walks once more upon the earth. Those relatively few who have led the way in preparation for this time will find themselves offered another field of service, an educational endeavor vast in scope. From all sides will come the queries. A long-felt hunger for knowledge will, like a dammed-up river, overflow and burst its banks. Many will seek to know the background and history of this event. For others, the immediate future will be their chief concern. Still others will feel the need to analyze and to question every explanation, unsatisfied in the end with aught but their own beliefs. Persuasion and tact, therefore, must be the order of the day, so to avoid the charge of bigotry and pride. Societies worldwide will play their part, assuring the broad dissemination of the needed teachings. Much remains to be given, but already much remains unopened and unread in the hands of men. Endeavor, the counsel is, to inculcate the habit of reading much, thus to inform and guide the seekers on the way. Systematic study of the teachings and earnest attempts to live the precepts of Maitreya will give the needed balance and authority with which to teach. Each one thus equipped can avail themselves of this opportunity to serve anew. Seize it, the counsel is, with altrucity and humble pride. Thank you. I love you guys. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.